The following episode contains subject matter that might be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Talking Wellness, presented by South Florida Wellness Network. As you saw by the thumbnail, we got something special. But before we do that, my name is Christian.
It's your boy, Michael.
And today we bring to you a new episode of My Story Matters. It's been a series that we've been doing for quite some time now. Michael has been in the hot seat. I've been in the hot seat. Kayla's been in the hot seat. We had Susanna in the hot seat. And now we have Daniela in the hot seat. So, Daniela, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela. Nice to meet you all virtually.
Yes.
Yeah. So today's episode of My Story Matters, as you saw in the title, is going to be very specifically about a topic that I feel we hear a lot about in the media, in the news, in film, in music, in podcasting even. I've heard it before. Even here at work, I've heard many reports, not only from government officials or from police, but even flyers that I see around the organization sharing about human trafficking. So if you, at the beginning of the episode, we gave you guys a little bit of a warning. If you didn't hear it, we're going to give you that second warning now. The topics that we are going to talk about are going to be a bit, what would be the word? A bit,
They could be a bit triggering to someone that's
difficult
dealt with
to
similar
hear.
issues.
So viewer discretion is advised. However, we want to encourage you to, if you truly believe that you can listen to this and heal from it and listen to it in a safe space, maybe with some supports around you, so that you feel that love and that warmth while you're listening to this.
Sure.
This could be truly elevating because, and I'm going to let Daniela share, but Daniela has a very interesting life story to share. I don't want to say too much, but I'll share the basics. Daniela, you shared with us that you have experienced human trafficking in your life.
Yes.
And not only that, you have utilized that experience to now help individuals who are in that life of human trafficking. So it's going to be a good one, y'all. So please grab some popcorn, or if you're driving, turn up that volume, because this episode is going to be very, very great, I think. So enlightening and insightful. So without further ado, Daniela, we're going to give you the space to kind of just share with us your story.
Wow. Okay. Well, my story started before the actual trafficking or exploitation.
Yeah. Tell us about who you are, where you're from, you know, who Daniela is.
Who Daniela
we want to get to
We
know
wanna
you
know
as
your
a
story
person.
as- Other than, obviously this episode, that's a big topic in your life, but we want to know your story because ultimately you were a human before that happened to you, and people need to understand that you weren't a human trafficked person your whole life,
Exactly.
And
it could happen to anyone.
It can definitely happen to anyone in any neighborhood. But who am I? So before my experiences, I would say that I was and still am. I was a creative, happy child, goofy child. Honestly, just wanted love, wanted acceptance. I saw myself as always a resistant and resilient person. And I was a fighter in so many different ways, whether it be physically, whether it be mentally, spiritually. I was a fighter. And so those that basis of who I was and still am, I feel like make me me. I'm very much a loving, giving person.
Awesome.
And always wanting to utilize my experiences to help others. Because I do know in this world that we live in, there are challenges. There's experiences, there's traumas, but it's not necessarily what that is, but what you can take from that situation.
Awesome. I love that you said that. I love that you said that, because there's so many people that are born into terrible situations that do way more than people that are born in, better situations than themselves. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So if I were to ask you, what would you say would be the moment or that part of your life where you feel everything changed?
And to add on to that, I noticed that you said I always wanted to feel love. I always wanted to feel accepted. Did you? How big was your family? Did you have siblings?
I had siblings.
Sisters?
I forgot. I'm from Miami. I'm a fake Miami person. I'll just be honest.
I kind of am too. I feel that.
Yeah. Like,
Let's be real though. Half of Miami is fake Miami
True.
people.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on. You can't say you're from Miami when you're from like South America or like Caribbean or Fort Lauderdale or like from Texas, California, New York.
I'm from Fort Lauderdale. I didn't tell people I'm from Miami all the time.
Well, I mean, you kind of are.
You kind of, yeah.
But no, let me tell you this. I'm from Miami Lakes, and anytime I would tell someone I'm from Miami Lakes, anybody from Miami, they're like, but it touches Broward. You not from Miami? And I'm like, whatever. But
Miami Lakes is cool.
Yeah,
That's like kind of Spanish, you know? There's a lot of Spanish people in
Yes.
Miami Lakes, no?
I
I
haven't
remember
been
playing
enough
soccer,
to be
and
like,
that
no.
soccer team, Miami Lakes, was Spanish, boy.
Yes,
But they were nasty.
It
Oh my
is.
God.
Miami Lakes is a very suburban and
that's the word for
yes,
it.
very
Yeah.
suburban Latin American.
Awesome area.
Yeah.
Awesome area.
Yeah. Sprinkles of black people, Black American, Afro Caribbean.
Yes.
Yeah. But there was a question that was asked, and I can't think of it.
Love and acceptance.
and
Did you ever
acceptance.
feel as if like you didn't get enough of that through? Oh, were your siblings? We didn't say how many you had.
So I have a brother and a sister, an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay, and then your family, your parents, were they together?
Is this okay? Can I?
No,
Yeah,
you're
you're
fine.
good.
You're
Okay,
good.
fine.
You're
You
good.
all hear me?
Hey, I got
We
you.
can move it along.
I got you. Boom.
Yeah.
Hey, we record this live, y'all. Like we edit it, but we record it live, y'all.
Yeah, because I'm comfortable now.
No,
so.
yeah, we
chill.
want you to be comfortable for sure.
We want you to be chatting. So go ahead, do your thing. So 2 siblings, older sister, younger
And
brother,
yeah.
and then your 2 parents together.
Yes.
Okay, so you have a pretty
Typical.
good American household. Yeah, exactly.
Very,
Typical.
very much standard American household.
Awesome.
My father worked in law enforcement for over 25 years.
Interesting.
Had a leadership position or leadership
Interesting.
title. Yes.
Interesting,
My
yeah.
mom an educator, master's.
Very standard, almost household. Oh
yes,
my goodness, yeah.
Very standard
But
household.
that's a great, like, you would think that, and you think that's going to be an awesome upbringing for the children.
Yeah.
You know, very, very solid man in the household. The mom is there she's doing nurturing kind of workload, which
That
is going to be able
50s
to
style
teach
of family.
Yes.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean,
Educated as well. Was in the education, still is in the education.
you can tell by the
system.
way you speak that your mom educated, like your mom
Oh
was
my
educated.
god,
as well.
that is horrible.
What?
Oh, I hate that.
What? What?
I gotten that a lot though.
That you
growing
sound
up.
educated?
Well, no, that one time this counselor had said to me, "Is your mom an English teacher?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Well, because you speak so well.
Is it because you get that because you're black? Is that
Yes,
why you
yes.
I feel you. I feel you.
And I'm gonna just be honest. There's pigmentocracy that exists in that
100%.
because I'm a dark skin. Like I'm
100%.
a chocolate drop. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so-
I agree, 100%. You ain't lying. You ain't said one thing that's not a fact. And I brought that up because you're black. Because I'm more light skinned, so of course I've not.
You said you're more light skinned.
I'm light skinned,
Oh, okay.
kind of. I mean I don't, because I don't want to claim to be like dark skinned. I mean, I think I am. You know what I'm saying? But no, I'm just kidding. We're getting off topic. We're getting off topic. No, I'm kidding.
Welcome to our episode about human
Not to be
trafficking,
honest,
y'all.
when I tell people, I'm honestly like, I was always in that middle, honestly, because I went to a lot of black schools and I went to a lot of white schools, and it was honestly always hard for me to get
Yeah.
adapted because I was always an outsider,
Yeah.
wherever I was. So I
Yeah.
completely agree. And then my parents always raised me to be not ignorant. So like
Yeah.
that. Along with that, you know, people were like, "Why is he talking like this? You're an Oreo." I'm sure you've gotten that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I have.
Exactly.
Definitely. Like I'm like, no, it's
Yeah.
because I speak like I'm educated. I remember once in an interview. This is crazy. Okay, I'm gonna get back into topic.
No,
Back-
No,
You're
it's
good. You're
okay.
doing your
Wait,
thing.
hey, I love this. Let's do it.
The little side quests are always good.
Yeah.
I remember I was in an interview. I was applying to be an administrative assistant at a law firm, and they asked, "So where do you live?" I'm like, "In Pembroke Pines." "Why do you live in Pembroke Pines?" Well, my dad worked in law enforcement, had a leadership position. My mom is an educator. She has a master's in the national boards. Where do you expect me to live? Like, do you expect me to live underneath a bridge? And no shade to anybody who,
of course,
who is in that predicament. No shade at all.
No,
it's ignorance.
But it's ignorance. It's like, where do you expect me to live? You know?
Yeah.
But back in topic. Okay.
No, well, I think this is perfect.
We need
because
context.
there's a very interesting context here, and it's a context of normalcy, if you will, or traditional.
Yes.
Everything. It's like you're playing a game, like a game of chess, and all the pieces are placed exactly where they need to be. Yeah. And someone came into the room and kicked the chessboard. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So this is why I love that we're getting a little bit more into your life, because it, like Michael said, it truly gets into the anyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what I really want people to understand, that anyone. And although on the outside it looks picture perfect American, all American, even my dad playing football when he was a kid, like although it looks very traditional and very American, there was a lot of abuse and mental health in my family. My father was undiagnosed, and the reason why I say undiagnosed is because he has a long line of schizophrenia in his family. My father had schizophrenia, and the only reason why I know that is based off of his lineage. However, he was never diagnosed, but the signs, everything is there. Everything is there. So my father, undiagnosed, but it's quite prevalent. Schizophrenia is in his family. His mother had schizophrenia. His mother's mom had schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Like,
and it doesn't help that he was in the work.
Yeah.
That he was in.
Law enforcement doesn't help that at all.
It doesn't help, and especially
it's tough.
Dealing with the racial disparities that he experienced, he was
as
exposed
well.
to. You know, so my dad was dealing with that. My dad was very abusive. He was abusive to my mother, to my siblings, and I always felt when I was in that life, I felt unloved and unwanted. I felt,
and I almost sensed that when you said it, like you initially said it. I don't know if it's because I've gone through periods of my life of feeling that way, like unconsciously and consciously. Like there's times where I'm like, I'm just not there. Just like depressed, but I don't realize it. And I realized that 10 years later, you know, like I was 15, 16 feeling this way. And now I'm like, oh, wow, I really was there, you know? So like, I noticed that right off your tone that you like, so that's super interesting. So your dad was abusive. Your mom was obviously, she was just,
how would you describe your mom?
Yeah. How was the situation with your mom? Like, did she ever try to get out of that situation? Like,
so eventually my mom did, and what a courageous woman. And I know that, you know, some people may have their thoughts about it, but my mom went through so much, and my mom finally made a decision to leave. And we finally left because she went back a couple of times. Because it happens. I mean,
of course.
It's part of it.
It's part of it.
She
went back a couple of times, and then she finally made a decision that she was no longer going to put us in that environment and herself. And I remember when I got older, she had told me that she needed to make a decision, and it was either my life or his, because it got down to that, where it was literally her life or his. And with my dad working in law enforcement and utilizing his power, there were some things that I witnessed that a child should have never had to witness, had never had to see, never had to see law enforcement in that capacity. And so we're supposed to see protect and serve, and I didn't see that. I saw abuse.
Does that give you like bad
literally about
feelings towards cops nowadays?
Did that affect your judgment towards police?
I've had, again, similar things back in the days. Boom, doors break down, cops are coming in. I'm like 10 years old watching Family Guy. So now 20 when I'm 29 now.
sorry.
Family Guy,
10 years old watching Family Guy.
hey. This was a dysfunctional household.
Hey, bro, don't even, because like I used to watch Family Guy at 10, bro.
I was watching South Park at like
South
6,
Park,
bro.
Simpsons.
Oh my God.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, this is what happens when your
Wow.
kids just left at home. But anyways, yeah, so like very traumatic stuff. So that obviously put a sour taste in my mouth for police until I was like,
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
29 now, until I was like 24, 25. And then I realized how much they do. I saw my friends in the line of work and realized how much they do and put their lives on the line for us. So it is like, so back to the question. How do you feel as like that changed the way you feel about, you know, law enforcement and stuff like that? And you're free to say whatever you want. Because again, I'm sure people
your
watching
truth.
this understand that like it's based on your traumas in your life, and they can't take that away from you. You know,
And even if they don't understand it,
if they don't understand
it's
it,
her opinion. It is what it is.
Your life, yeah.
Right. How has my opinions, my thoughts, sentiments? When it comes to law enforcement, I understand that there are some law enforcement officers that, very few though, that really do help the community, really do want to.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say very few bad. You said very few good.
Yeah, very few good. I believe that they're
So you
out
think there's
there.
a small percentage of good and a large percentage of just people kind of doing their job kind of thing?
But again, like, I'm going to answer your question
Yeah.
because of my experiences.
Of course. Yeah.
From what I've seen, and I'm 30. I don't mind saying my age. I'm
Yeah,
30
yeah.
years old. I've only had maybe one experience with a police officer, only one
Mm-hmm.
that where I felt like I wasn't in fear, like I didn't have to be in fear. I felt like I could trust him. I felt like he saw me.
Out of the many that you've had.
Out of the many. And without going deep into my experiences,
Yeah, of course.
when I was in the life, I experienced sexual abuse by a police officer. So my father, child abuse, domestic violence.
Someone super close to you.
Someone super close to me, then being in the life and being sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, by law enforcer. So, I think that there's some good out there. It's just very hard accessing those good.
No, yeah. Absolutely. I completely agree. I think,
Yeah.
you know, unfortunately, there are the bad ones out there. I think there's like probably a good 10% of good, really good cops.
Out of
Good
100?
10% of really
Out of
bad
100?
cops.
Out of 100?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
10% really good cops that
Yeah.
exceptionally well go out of their way to.
I don't
do
know about
everything.
statistics, but
Yeah,
me either.
yeah,
10% that
I'm not
don't.
gonna put statistics
I
out
don't
there.
know. Like,
But what I will say this. It took me quite some time to be empathetic towards police officers, as well as towards individuals who are being hurt by police.
right.
I think 2020 was a great example of that, on how easily we can, as a society, just bash on these people. Not only the people who are in law enforcement, but also the people who are suffering from the actions of law enforcement. We saw both sides of it, right? We saw one side being like, oh, screw police, right? Defund the police. And then we saw the other side who was like, you guys are all animals going out there doing stuff, right? And what I've learned across the years, and I've been open about it in the podcast, because I've allowed myself to meet a lot of police officers in my life, and I today have a different view than I had back in 2020.
Okay.
Because at the same time, I've seen and I've heard from them. Keep in mind, this is based on conversations with police officers that I've had close encounters with. Like I won't get into too much detail to keep their identity safe, but I used to, at a previous job that I had, there was a police officer that I would talk to on a regular basis, because they would come, I would say hi, we would talk about how their day was going. If I stopped at a gas station, I would see them. And we became friendly in the context of the workspace, right, of my job.
Okay.
And they would tell me how difficult it is sometimes, and how often they have to go out to people who are in a space where automatically is guard, defense, I don't like you.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, I understand why those people feel that way because of the history, right? You learn through experiences, and many experiences, especially if that's what you look at media. Media is a great tool at telling you what's going on and how to not support police, right? If you see that, immediately those fears start to happen, and your immediate reaction when you see a police officer is danger, danger. And I'll be the first to admit that's exactly what happened one of the first times I ever got a traffic ticket. My hands were 10 and 2.
Yeah.
Right? Police officer came. You know why I pulled you over? No, sir, I don't. Hey, you were speeding. Like, okay, what do you need? He's like, oh, I need your identification, your registration. I put it on the dashboard. Here you go. Because I didn't want to risk it because those fears built up, right? Mm-hmm. Today's a little bit differently. Maybe I wouldn't react the same way. But I guess what I'm going at is that I'm not going to sit here and start saying like, I understand both sides. That's not what I'm saying at all. Okay. But what I'm saying is that I think there's validity in both arguments. You know, why people feel negatively towards police officers and why people feel negatively towards people who don't like police officers, right? And I think the important distinction to make is I think we need to start building bridges.
We do.
And I think the only way we can do that is to educate both parties.
Educate both, but then, again, I have to go back to history. Historically, I'm Black American, okay? With us, our experience with any type of law enforcement and authority, I have to pull on slavery. I do, because that's a part of my history. That's a part of how things are here in this country. Mm-hmm. And for us, for Black Americans who've been here, have experienced police officers, to us in some capacities, it kind of, in ways, it mirrors how things were in slavery, where you had someone where it was someone who were, how can I say this? Someone who was in a position of power and authority and are using that position, that power over you, and who are being exploitive, who are being abusive, and sometimes all of that leads into a fatality. So for us, it's more than just this is happening right now. This goes back. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's generational trauma. It's also to what we see in the media, but for us, it's both connected, interconnected. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Or
absolutely.
No, I absolutely get what you're saying. And again, it's something that you would only understand. I mean, there's a spectrum of understanding, I think. Yeah. Okay. And like, you understand more the more that you've dealt with those kind of situations. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like, for me, I didn't grow up in the greatest situation. You know, I grew up in impoverished kind of places, and I grew up in areas where cops were more annoyances than helping. You know, I live in a much different neighborhood now where cops are the opposite, you know? So it's so hard to talk about, because back to what Chris said, like, as much as like you want to say 10%, it really is hard to get into percentages, and then you get political. But there always is going to be really bad cops. Let's keep the percentages out. There's always going to be bad cops. There's always going to be really good cops, and there's going to be those cops that just do their job because it's a job. And I think, as unfortunately, like you're saying, there is that level of power that cops have over humans or people.
Authority. Yeah.
It's authority.
It's true. They 100% have that level of power. And the thing is, when people don't go right by the cops, or they don't follow them, or don't go by the rules, sometimes these cops can go outside the boundary of their powers. Yeah. And that's where we see like the things on Twitter. We even can sometimes run into these situations. I've run into a situation where a cop was abusive of his power, but I also ran into a situation where a cop was extremely lenient on me based upon my actions. Because I remember I got extremely like belligerently drunk one night, and the cops got called on me. Not because I was drunk or anything, because of like a mistaking situation. And then, but just the way they came up to me and just asked me just the way I was with them, I was like, F you, for no reason. And they could have easily just taken me away, you know. And
go to jail, spend the night.
Yeah, like, bro, we don't need to deal with this. But they were like, hey, we're here to just answer the questions. I understand, like, if we're being this, like, threw you in a loop, you're with your friends, we just want to get to the bottom of this. I don't want to make you feel a certain way. And it was a Spanish cop. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yo, like, I really appreciate you, like, kind of, you quiet, like, kind of mellowed me down a little bit because I do have like rough experiences with cops. I literally told him that. And then he's like, no, bro, like I get it. I understand. We just wanted to check on everybody and you guys are good to go. And that's it. There was the situation was done.
And again, it comes back to that idea of building bridges, right?
Exactly.
Like how I think there needs to be more conversations, not only amongst people like us, right? Just regular conversations, but amongst big political spaces on how can we start building those bridges.
I think addressing the generational trauma. Because
That's
again, it's this is not just something
like I even addressed that with that cop in a brief thing. Like I told him like my reasons why I felt that way. He understood them and treated me a certain way. But it's not that easy with everybody because they're not willing to do it.
They're not,
and they don't. And there's just sometimes it's not the reciprocation on both sides actually, because you'll have like black people or minority people, and they'll be like, F cops, bro, no matter what. And I understand that because
generation, and I'm not saying that this is the only answer to it, but it's generational trauma and
100%.
really understanding.
What do you think would bridge what would help you, or what would you think would help generations like coming forward to actually bridge that gap? Like no like BS, no like going around it.
Can I add to that question?
Yeah.
Absolutely that question. But now that kind of tying it back to what we're talking about, here's the thing, the way I see it. I feel that in order to start closing that gap of human trafficking, and part of the people that need to be involved in this conversation to end human trafficking is police officers.
I agree.
Because they're the ones in the front lines going out there into these places trying to find these children or these adults or these individuals to potentially help them get out of that situation. So to tag on to that question, what do you think would need to be some of the strategies we would need to take as people or as a nation to start bridging those gaps, to just start helping people in dangerous situations?
This may be just a general, not generalized, but
we're speaking in general, so you're good, yeah.
Okay, this may just, my response, you probably may not like it, but oh well, I'm going to say it. I think what it really comes down to, I think what I see with law enforcement, some of them have compassion fatigue, and some of them, they just lose all empathy. And at this point, they don't see you no longer as this person needs help, but they see you more as a problem.
They get desensitized a bit.
They get desensitized towards it. So I think there needs to be more resources. And I didn't even say again. Like, why am I saying again? Sorry. I don't know too much what resources are provided to law enforcement officers. I don't know if there's any self-care or I really don't know. But from what I saw with my father, there wasn't a lot. There was nothing to help him. My mom, she did everything she could to get my father help, but there was no help for him.
As far as mental health?
As far as mental health, as far as just general help, general support. And I believe with law enforcement, if we are able to provide more education, more resources for law enforcers who are doing direct services or direct enforcement in the community, getting them the resources that they need for their mental health, because it can be draining. Inserting yourself into that type of environment consistently and feeling overwhelmed. I get it. But you chose this, okay? You signed up for this. So now that you signed up for this, it's imperative that, one, there's resources to help individuals in this field, and two, not making the process so easy for you to become a law enforcer. Like, just because you graduated from high school and you're like, what, you have to be 21, I think? 21 in order to be a law enforcer?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know there are
probably could be younger in certain states.
Like, it's not necessarily difficult to get the
job. You do a psych eval, physical exam.
Psych eval, okay.
The actual police academy course.
Yes, you do the
You got to get into the police academy.
Yes, you have to get into the police academy, but and don't quote me on this, but I believe the age is like 21, and then you have to go through all of that training to make sure that you're physically fit. But more than just being physically fit, mentally fit for this. What's your history? What's your lineage? Yeah. So it needs
what's your why? You know, we constantly talk here about the why.
Yes.
Right.
What's your why?
I think that, for example, Michael, and I know you can share more detail, but the reason you chose your career in photography and video editing and stuff like that is because that's your why. You love doing that. You love that type of expression. The reason I chose this job is because this is my why: helping people, supporting people, helping them find resources and connecting them with ways to get through their struggles. I'm pretty sure you have that. Your why is in supporting people who have been who have suffered from human trafficking. Like, we have found our why. So maybe it could start with a conversation. What's your why?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like,
why are you in that
back
field?
to like the 10, 80%. That's mostly derived from people's whys. Like, you're going to be a really good cop if you're becoming a cop. Why? Because I want to change things. You're going to be a bad cop.
People.
Why? Because you don't really care. You're just getting this
I
job
just
to
need
get
this
some
money.
power.
I need the money.
And
Exactly. And then the 80% of the other people that don't care, that's just a job. Why are you getting a job? Because I need a job.
I need money.
Yeah,
You know,
I need
you
money.
need a job, benefits.
I need money. I need healthcare.
It's not too. I don't want to say it's easy to get a job as a cop, because I would never want to say that. It's any job is hard to hold down, especially a career like that to put your life on.
Yeah.
But you know, like, as far as getting into the workplace, you get a lot. You get benefits. You get paid pretty well. You know, so like it's
Decent,
a pretty good job to get into without a lot of time put in. When you look at
Opportunities to grow,
med school and other stuff. Basically,
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
So this all leads to one moment.
Yeah.
We've talked about your past. We've talked
Right.
about your father.
Yeah.
We've talked about that intense situation. We've talked about your mother. Could we hear the story of the day that you would say it started happening? The trafficking, of course, for those who are listening.
Yeah. So for me, it started at the age of 12. Literally, my mom left the situation when I was 11, and so less than a year, 12. That's when it started for me. It was someone that I knew in the neighborhood. He was around 17, 18.
Sorry to interrupt. This is in Florida, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
this is in Florida.
Miami Lakes.
No, this is in Pembroke Pines, because after
wow.
this point,
Okay.
my mom moved from Miami
That's why I
Lakes
asked these
to
questions.
Pembroke. Yeah.
10
Because
minutes from
people
here.
think Pembroke Pines. I live in Pembroke Pines. People think, oh wow, Pembroke
10
Pines.
minutes
I'm
from
gonna
here.
go
Yeah.
there for my kids to go to school over
Because
there.
it's safe
It's
and
super
there's
nice.
nothing going to
Exactly.
happen. And I'm
Exactly.
like, shut up. It happened to we
Yeah.
were living in a gated community.
Yep.
Nice homes, you know. Very hard to get in.
West Side.
Yep.
Off of West
of 75.
No, it was off of Hiatus and Pembroke Road. So
Oh,
around
okay.
that-
So
okay. I know exactly.
a
what you're
little
talking about.
less
Yeah.
far, but yeah.
Yeah, less far.
I think I know
I was like
exactly what
gated
you're
community.
talking
You mean
about.
like West
Yeah.
Pembroke? But
Yeah.
I get it though.
My sister might live there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was.
We're not gonna expose addresses.
Yeah.
You didn't hear that. She walks into the door, hits you in the head.
Yeah.
Okay, so it happened.
It happened.
For those who
It
don't
was-
know, our offices are located in Hollywood, Florida, and Pembroke Pines is 15 minutes away
It's not
on the
that
car.
far.
It's not
Yeah.
far at all. So that's wild that you're sharing this.
Yeah.
I used to live in Pembroke Pines
Yeah,
actually.
visually,
for a little bit.
Pembroke Pines, it looks very nice, very clean.
Yeah, very
you
clean,
know,
very
very-
high class. You know,
Yeah.
you
One
of
got
the most
the
expensive
UFC
areas.
gym over
Yeah.
there. You got some of the best schools.
Yeah,
CB
some of the-
Smith.
yeah.
$1 million homes.
Yes, $1 million homes. I think it's. I always get it confused. Southwest Ranches, I think.
It's like right next
It's
to
like,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
5
like right.
minutes. My ex-girlfriend's from Southwest
Yeah,
Ranches. I live in
yes.
Pembroke Pines, so
5 minutes,
Yes.
I know all about that area.
Yeah.
Yes, and my experiences started there. I
Okay.
was 12. It was someone that I thought I was in a relationship with. He also too was in the life.
How old was he?
He was 17, 18 around that time. Yeah. And he was also in the life. And what I mean by in the life, sometimes it's a word that we use in the community to describe it without actually saying HT or CSEC. And CSEC is commercially sexually exploited child or children.
Oh wow.
Sick.
Yeah, CSEC.
I'm gonna write that
So
down.
he
I wanna
was
remember
known
the
for
picture.
that particular work, not even
Well,
just criminal work. That particular.
He
work.
was known particularly for selling drugs. He was
Okay.
known particularly for that type of
And
life.
yeah, that's what I'm more
Yeah.
known to, used to. Like, oh, this guy's known as that guy.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
known for that. And definitely it was a lot of grooming. I started using substances when I was with him.
Okay.
And I'll never forget the day, never to this day. I pass out all the time when I'm on my way to see my mom. I'll never forget when the grooming and when he started breaking me in. He would take me to a location. Now stands a building. He would take me to that location, and that's when he started breaking me in. That's when he started giving me substances. That's when he started really getting me into the idea of having sex for money. And I really didn't understand when I met him. I was a virgin, but after I met him, I was no longer a virgin. And
this is 12, 13-ish?
No, 12 exactly.
Wow.
12, yeah.
And can I ask you real quick, where was your older sister and your brother at the time? Not to say they needed to intervene, but like what was happening with them, their lives at the time? Like, did you feel like the need to share anything with them? Did you hide everything? Were you guys not close at all? Like,
well, the thing is this, we were just leaving an abusive household.
Right.
We never talked about our abuse with each other.
Everybody's going through their own trauma.
Everybody's going through their own trauma.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking to each other. I literally thought that what we were living in was normal. I thought it was normal that my father didn't want my mom sleeping in the bed with him in their room because he felt that she was going to kill him, or she felt that she was going to do something to him in her sleep.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was in that type of environment where
it became about coping.
It became about coping. It became about, let's just get through this and that's it.
Yeah.
You know? And
did you feel like consciously aware of the situation, or did you just feel like
whatever, I'm just gonna
I felt
life.
like this was normal.
And I'm asking, I felt the exact same way. It was just like, okay. Well,
I didn't know that what I was dealing with was abnormal, or I didn't know that there was another way of life aside from this. I just thought, okay, my dad is in control. He has power. And I've seen firsthand what happens when I've seen firsthand what happens when you try to fight against that. I've seen firsthand with my mom.
With your mom.
And so going back into when the grooming started for me, again, it's that whole dynamics of power and control. He had power. I wanted love, and I thought that I was getting that love from him. I thought that he manipulated me, but I also thought he was a protector for me. You had mentioned earlier on in this segment about shows that you were watching when you were a kid. And so I kind of want to go back to that. As a child or as a little girl, we're watching shows with Disney princesses and all this stuff. And, you know, the princesses are going through trauma, and then there's always that prince that saves them. So it's like in my mind, it's like, oh, sorry.
He was
in
your
my
Prince Charming.
Yeah, in my mind, he was my
Shrek.
prince. He was my.
He was definitely. Hey, that's a good one.
He was
But
my
I mean,
Shrek.
look,
He was a fraud.
Shrek. I mean, come on now, Shrek. He was.
He was my frog. He was my.
Shrek was, you know, he was better than us.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I saw that with him, and
So
yeah.
I'm very interested here because we were talking a little bit about this before the podcast. My vision of human trafficking came from movies, and we're gonna get into that. I'll never forget the very first movie that I saw that I can remember actively being about trafficking was the movie Taken with Liam Neeson. If you haven't checked it out, it's an action movie where the main topic is that this I think he's a FBI agent or CIA agent.
He's like a
his
black
daughter,
ops or something,
his daughter gets she goes on a
Taken.
trip to Paris with her friend, and in that they get taken literally from their hotel to
in
be
the most
sexually trafficked.
stereotypical way of
Yes.
everything was the most stereotypical
There's
way
a
of
famous
everything.
scene where she's under the bed on the phone with her dad, and then the dad picks up the phone and it's like, I don't care where you are, I'm gonna come find you,
And it's
and I will
like-
kill you. And it's like, okay. So very dramatized, very very Hollywood, right? Where the idea is not to highlight human trafficking. The idea is to entertain audiences.
It's sensationalism.
You have
Exactly.
that and then
It's
Sound of
sensational.
Freedom.
And then Sound of Freedom
Let's
came
not
last
go there.
year, where
That's
they
two different movies.
where
I know.
Yeah.
it was well received by a lot of people in a certain community. I won't name what community, but it was received very well by a certain community. But a lot of people started criticizing it due to, again, that exploitative kind of way of illustrating what really happened, like that savior complex.
Yes.
Right?
Over dramatized.
I'm not
Great White Hope. I'm going to be honest. The Great White Hope.
I'm not going to personally share, nor are we going to share our thoughts on those films, because that's not what we're here to talk about. However, I do want to hear your perspective on the representation of HT in those films or in TV shows like SVU, like Law and Order. How do you feel about that representation? Because you work with the community, so you hear from a perspective of people who actually survived. What do you feel about that?
I feel that, honestly, I didn't know I was a survivor of CSEC until I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
Because in my mind, I thought trafficking was white girls being taken in white vans. I'm just going to be honest. And I'm like, that can't happen to a girl that looks like me, you know? And so it wasn't until I met my mentor, love her to life, and I was interning at an institution in South Florida, and she was asking me questions that I felt were like, why are you asking me these questions? And I kind of checked all those boxes. Not, like, of course, now thinking back in retrospect, I checked all those boxes. I was in DJJ. I had experienced domestic violence, child abuse, sex abuse, incest, all these different things in my life. And the trafficking, of course, that was one of them. And so when I finally started educating myself about trafficking, and I realized, oh my God, because I remember I had told her a story or a situation that happened, and I laughed because I thought it was funny. She gave me this stern look like, that is not funny. I'm not going to laugh with you. That, that literally right there was trafficking, but I didn't really see it as that. I saw it as whatever. And then in the future, I thought about it. I'm like, oh my God, because I started educating myself and putting myself more into the anti-trafficking community. And I'm like, oh my God, I was.
Oh, wow. So you didn't realize you were a part of it until after.
Yeah. And some of us really don't know. We really don't know that we are survivors of human trafficking until we're educated about it. Because again, you have movies like Taken, you have Law and Order Special Victims Unit that shows this, she was chained up. And not saying that this type of stuff doesn't happen, because I'm sure
it might happen to some people.
There are extremes to where stuff like that can happen.
Where it could happen, but that it really conflates what it really looks like. And again, trafficking is very intimate and it's very personal. It's someone you know. It's not some person who's staring at you and just gonna swipe you up out of nowhere. It's
and that was an interesting stat I saw. I don't remember exact the percentage, and I remember seeing that on Twitter, and it was like, it was a big, massive percentage. It was like the main people that traffic you are the people that are close to you, loved ones, like maybe not loved ones, but people that know you for a long time.
Familial trafficking is high. Familial trafficking, for those who don't know, it is like a family member. It's a mom, a dad, or cousin. It's a foster parent. It's that is familial.
It's so crazy for me to think of, to be honest. But
familial trafficking, and it happens in ways that some wouldn't even think that that's trafficking, but it is.
Yeah.
And so for me, I hope I'm answering your question. When I first started educating myself, I remember calling my mentor and I'm like, so I was like shaking a little bit because I just, again, like,
you came to realization, like, wow, that happened to me, kind of thing?
Had like, wow, this really happened. This is not real. And honestly, I think my mind, my body, my spirit wouldn't allow me to forget what happened, because I would have flashbacks, nightmares, see faces, smell things, hear things that remind me. And so I think my body was telling me, my spirit was telling me, girl, you need to fix this. There's something that you're not confronting, and this is it.
Yeah.
And so when I began to realize what happened, it allowed me to see trafficking differently. And it opened my mind more as to how trafficking is not what they show in movies and films.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you say was the so, because this is what I heard, and please elaborate if I'm wrong. What I heard is that there was an age where you started pursuing a career, and that lifestyle wasn't necessarily, you weren't a part of it.
No.
So it was only when you started pursuing a career where somebody told you, hey, these are the signs that mean that normally somebody went through this. That's when you decided, that's when you realized, oh my gosh, this happened.
This happened because I was, at this point, I was an administrative assistant. I had varied administrative assistant roles when I started on my career. And I was a part of this organization that was started in the institution that provided services to survivors of human trafficking. And I was so passionate about it. I loved the work that I was doing. When I would read the stories, because I would get their intakes and I would read it, I often kind of felt like, are they telling my life? Why are you telling my life?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Why are you telling my life? So, yeah.
So, Survivor's Hope.
Yes.
I want to give you the opportunity to talk about it. I'm just going to say the name, but I would love to hear, what was the moment when you said, I want to do this. I need to do this.
When I was working for an organization in South Florida that was providing mentoring services to survivors of human trafficking, and after getting my experiences, I saw that there wasn't a lot of BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, persons of color. There weren't a lot of BIPOC nonprofits in South Florida that were tackling this issue of trafficking and not leading it. And two, survivors not leading it. And so I wanted to utilize my experiences, but then also bring other survivors on board who are willing to do this work, who feel like they're ready to do it.
To create a system of peer work.
Yeah, to create a system of peer work.
It's the best way to learn, especially in traumatic situations. You can only learn how to process your trauma, in my opinion, through other people that have processed their traumas and similar
it's definitely
type of things. It's the biggest.
I wouldn't say it's the only way, but it's definitely very effective.
Not the only way. Absolutely not. It's one of the most helpful ways, in my opinion, because you can go through therapy. You can obviously ask questions and ask the opinions of people that haven't gone through it.
Right.
But I feel like, we've seen it here. When you go through it.
I always do the analogy. Imagine mental health as a platter of chicken and mashed potatoes, right?
Yeah.
Therapy is the chicken. Counseling is the chicken. It's the protein. It's where you're going to learn the whys and the hows. But peer work is the mashed potatoes, and we all love mashed potatoes.
I do.
And sometimes we love it more than the chicken.
Yeah.
But they work well together, right?
Yeah.
Peer support is okay, you've learned the tools.
Yeah.
How do we move forward?
Yeah.
Right. So I always say it works hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
So Survivor's Hope, nonprofit, where is it based?
So it's based out here in South Florida, providing services, mentoring peer work in Miami and in Broward County. And so what we do is we meet with youth, or we meet with young adults who are still in the what's wrong with me? Still in the life. And sometimes just how are you doing? Sometimes just a conversation does so much. No, we don't have the finances right now to give you what you need. I'll try to find some to get you what you need. But sometimes literally just hey, I want to make sure you're okay. Yeah. Hey, when's the last time you've eaten? Do you want to get something to eat?
Yeah.
Oh, but I smell. I don't care.
Big question.
Yeah.
Have you noticed through your line of work and helping people doing the peer work, have you noticed a similar behaviors, similar consistencies as far as like families or the person that it's actually going through? Because I noticed, like in your story, you said, you know, my father became abusive, my mother left. You guys as the children became a little bit almost just kind of passing through, you know? So in my opinion, that almost creates a great environment for something like what happened to you to come in and happen. Not saying I wish it did, but it makes it almost seems like it's easier to happen, right?
Yes.
So do you see like people like in your work?
Similar
you know,
patterns.
Similar patterns? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I literally just had a conversation with a parent on Sunday, and when he was telling me about certain things, I'm like, oh my God, this life has not changed at all. Like, it is not changed. It's still the same. It's just it's even gotten, I feel that traffickers have now, I would say, evolved. And I would also say have now perfected the skill, because when we have movies like Taken and
crime work,
you know, like, that makes it easy, you know, because people still don't know what trafficking is and what it looks like and how it's, again, it is a very intimate experience, familial, intimate dating.
I think it's the number one
employers.
illegal moneymaker in the world.
I've heard that before. I've heard similar things.
It's like
to
that or drugs.
It's like like right now,
or guns.
It's
That or guns.
Unless the numbers have changed overnight, it's a $150 billion industry worldwide. Yeah.
Well, interesting you share that.
They're going to perfect that industry.
According to the U.S. Department of State website, I did a little bit of research before we started. They said there's an estimated 27.6 million victims worldwide at any given time.
Oh, yeah.
Think of how many people that is. 27, what is that?
27.6 million.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is here.
Yeah,
it's like 8% of the United States.
Like, but what I guess
it
really comes down to this idea, and I want us to start kind of getting into, well, this next part really.
Yeah.
Survivor's Hope, you know, I've talked to you multiple times now, and I've definitely would recommend, if you are a person who is currently going through that experience, or you know somebody who might be going through that experience, sharing resources like this can help, you know, can help. Just maybe sharing this episode could be a way for them to be like, oh my God, she shared her story.
Opened up the door. Yeah.
Maybe I can, right? There's some multitude of things we can do. But that being said, I want to ask you, how do we help? How do we support? What are resources we can provide? Because ultimately, like we've been talking about, the biggest problem is that we don't know what even human trafficking looks like these days. We think it's Taken. We think it's Sound of Freedom. We think it's Sicario. But we think it's like all these different things. We think it's like the Black Phone, a movie that came out, if it wasn't last year, the year before that, right? This guy who was just stealing kids off the street and keeping him in his basement, right? That's what we're used to, because that's what we see in movies. That's what we see in TV, SVU. But I guess what I'm trying to go to, there's going to be a lot of people watching this episode who just want to know how to help. So what would you say, if you know any resources, or if you know any supports that exist that could potentially help?
Well, there's a couple of organizations that I know that do really, really good, great work. That are survivor-led and that are BIPOC. When I get a chance to shout out my survivor sisters, I definitely do it all the time, because this is a teamwork. We're doing this together. But there's Survivor's Hope, which is, of course, my nonprofit. But then there is Breaking Change Foundation that's based in, I believe, Southwest.
I've heard of that one.
You've heard of?
Heard of that one. Yeah, Breaking Change. Yeah.
Southwest, I think Southwest Florida. She's the creator of the program, Sabella, my survivor sister.
I've heard of her name. Yes, that sounds so familiar. Sabella.
She has an amazing organization where she's doing peer work as well. I'm so proud of her.
That's awesome.
She and I, we work hand in hand together. There's another one called You Are More Than, located in New Jersey. Although it's in New Jersey, they do provide services throughout the U.S. in certain
There you go.
So
they're online.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So they're not just, if you live in New Jersey, you can only get services there. They're everywhere, and they're so amazing. So if you all have a chance, please look at their website. The work that they do is incredible.
So would you say there are a lot of resources? They're just not represented?
They're just not represented well. And
Interesting.
And honestly,
it sounds like there's resources.
Yeah,
out
there is. Yeah, it's just with grassroots organizations, because we're not a brand name.
It's hard to find.
It's hard to find, but then also too, funding gets a little bit limited for us because we're not a brand. We're not a brand name. We're grassroots. We're literally building this. Like the money that we get, the money that we make, we're pouring this into our nonprofit. Yeah, into the community.
I found this, and I want to share it with people.
Yes.
There is a national human trafficking hotline.
Yes.
It is 888
Yeah.
373 7888. I'm going to try to put the graphic on the screen one more time. It's 888 373 7888. That is the 24/7 national hotline where you can get support through that as well. Daniela, I kind of want to finish with this because I personally believe in your cause.
Yeah.
I believe in your organization because I think there's a severe issue in America where we are not getting educated enough on how to support people who are going through human trafficking. And we hear it all the time. If you see something, say something. If you notice the signs, but at the end of the day, we don't know how to help.
You don't,
So organizations like the ones you mentioned, like Survivors Hope, it can allow for more spreading of that message, which could save lives, right? That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about saving people, like helping them get through these struggles. Like we're talking about helping people find their own way out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I want to, if you could share, how can people who might listen to this podcast, how can people in the community support your organization?
Well, there's a couple ways to support my organization, but just in general, supporting survivors. I just want to make a nice blanket statement. No one can rescue a survivor. People have this mentality of rescuing. You cannot rescue anybody. It is the survivor that can rescue themselves.
I love that.
All you are is a conduit of services. That's all you are.
I love that.
And that's it.
And especially coming from someone that is a survivor, and not like me saying it, you know, because I'm a big advocate in that as well. Is like, you can go through no matter like the hardest times in life, but the only way you're going to get out of it is when you acknowledge that you're ready to get out of it. And we've heard that from your story, Kayla's story, the mother's stories. They realized, like, I was at my rock bottom. I told myself, I'm tired of this, and I'm going to change it.
Exactly.
And it only comes down to that personal person. And then with the help of support and your peers, then you can get through it because you do need help.
Everybody confuses help with doing it for someone.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's the basis of peer work. Is like, we are not going to do it for you.
Not at all.
We're going to do it with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
All you can do is just be that conduit for when they are ready. Services will be right there.
Exactly.
You know, what can I at this moment prepare for them so that when they're like, okay, I'm ready, that you can just be there for them and be that support. Because the problem is the agency, the autonomy has been taken away, and you trying to rescue, you're also taking that away as well. They need to have that autonomy. They need to feel like they're empowered. And so that's one thing. But to grassroots organizations and nonprofits, if you could donate, that is great.
Do you have a website you can tell them right now?
Yes. So I have my website, Survivors Hope. It is survivors-hope. And on my website, you can definitely make a donation. So donating
.com?
Yes. No, .org. My apologies.
.org.
.org. Oh my God.
Survivors-hope.org.
Yes. Can y'all edit that part out?
No, we'll put it in the screen so you guys can see.
Yes.
Survivors-hope.org.
Yes. And there you can definitely make donations to support our cause, because remember, with grassroots organizations, we are literally pulling funds, sometimes from our own account, from our own, to be able to make this work, to be able to provide services in the community.
How do you get government granted in that kind of stuff?
So you would have to apply, and they are called competitive grants.
Just takes more time. We did the same thing.
Yeah. It takes more time. And to be quite honest, if you're a nonprofit who's 2 or 3 years old, what organization is going to be like, okay, I'm going to give you $1 million to do what you need to do. They need to be able to see, okay.
You need to see results. You need to see time. You need to see time in the community.
Yes. And
Yeah,
and the thing is, you have to prove
Takes
to
a lot of
them,
time.
if we don't provide you this funding that you need, how will you sustain yourself? And for some of us, charity events, people donating to us, of course, that won't support the entirety of the services, but it definitely does help.
Yeah,
It definitely helps.
Because they want to supplement you. They want to help. They don't want
Yes, they don't want to be
the
exactly
money pig for your
for real.
No,
No,
100%.
yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I absolutely, and you gotta understand that the government's there to help, but the government's a business at the end of the day.
Yes.
They need to make money.
They need to make money, and they want to see results. They want to, yeah.
And that's the thing. Even if they maybe don't see money, they need to see results because then they could get votes and other things like that. So.
Yeah.
I was the one that funded
politics.
this program.
Exactly. But that's politics.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it works.
That's exactly how it works.
That's exactly
Yeah,
how it
like-
works.
So this leads me to my final question.
Yes.
And I wish I could stay here for hours because I love talking with you, Daniela, and I can't wait to have you back.
We're the worst with timing. We have to try to
Yeah, we
close
have
it
to
down.
try to close it because
an hour and a half.
I cannot
Yeah.
wait to have you back and just talk more and chat more.
We should do a part 2.
We will. That's a promise. I don't know when,
We're gonna
but we
build
will.
up
That's
the podcast,
a promise.
make it bigger, and hopefully have a lot more guests on. Maybe
Yeah.
like 6 or 7 people.
Yeah, that's the goal. We really want to
And
try to
just
have like a table
A
discussion
very
about
open
different
dialogue.
topics.
Yeah.
But here's my final question. I have this feeling in my heart,
Yeah.
and I've been having it since we first had this conversation about having this episode. I met Daniela, for those who are interested in knowing. I met her in peer training
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago now.
Yeah.
But in that peer training, when I was hearing her share her story, your story, I immediately, something pulled at my heartstrings.
Yeah.
And what pulled, the feeling, the thought, the idea that pulled is that somebody needs to hear this.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to hear this because the same way we've been sharing all of our stories, the same way Mothers in Recovery, Aging in Recovery, Brian Sims and the veterans, there's power in sharing our stories.
Yeah.
And even if we change one life, one person hears it.
That's enough.
That's enough.
That we did it. We did everything we needed to do. We can shut down this podcast. If we saved, if we helped, if we supported, if we helped somebody save themselves, one person.
Yeah, one person
We did
hearing Daniela's story and realizing, hey, maybe I'm in the same situation, and hey, maybe that person that's my neighbor that's real nice to me is not real nice.
It's not real nice. It's
Yeah.
actually
and,
being
and that's why this stuff
B word.
is super important, you know? Exactly.
or an A B C D E F G S all the way words. My question is, what would be one last piece of advice that you would give to any viewer
Closing thought.
or closing thought who might be listening to this and they feel that they're going through this, they just don't know what step to take?
Oh my God. There's just, can you repeat that question one more time? Not the
Absolutely.
whole full thing, but just
One
meat
final
and potatoes. Yeah.
One final piece of advice for an individual who feels they're going through this experience and they want to know what step to take first.
That's so tough.
Honestly, the first step is knowing that there's a way out. Just for them to know. I'm not even talking about the process of recovery of leaving the situation. I'm just talking for them to know that there's a way out. Like,
Hope.
there's hope, and just know that you have what it takes to leave that situation. You have what it takes. And even because sometimes with survivors, we get caught in oh, but I have this here and that's replaceable. Just knowing that you do have power. It may not feel like it. It may not seem like it, but you do have power. And just know that you have what it takes. You have what it takes. You can leave. You just have to empower yourself first.
No matter how it is.
No matter how
hard
it
it is, you have the power in your situation.
No matter how hard it is, you have the power. Because for us, our power has been stripped. We feel like there's nothing else to this but this. because we've been groomed and conditioned, whether it be abuse that we've witnessed since childhood and experienced, that this is the only way, but it's not the only way. It's not. So you have the power. Yeah.
Awesome.
That is
that.
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's always a way. That's the lasting message.
Yeah.
There's always a way.
It's such a hard question, you know, because like
Yeah.
she even said she didn't even know what was happening to her.
Yeah.
So like
Right.
to know how to like get out of the situation without even knowing it's happening to you
Yeah.
is so hard. So it's just like, I don't know. I honestly,
Yeah.
you know, I empathize with your
Yeah.
situation.
Well, I'll leave the hotline one more time.
Yeah.
888-373-7888.
Yeah.
We wish you the best out there. But we appreciate you listening to this podcast. Daniela, thank you so much for coming. It was an honor. It really was.
Okay.
And please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we post. And if you are one of our audio listeners, we love you too. Please give us a 5-star rating so this podcast can keep reaching more locations. We've talked multiple times about all the different countries that we've been able to reach. So please keep sharing, and we cannot wait for our next episode next week. Have a great one, guys.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.